Hi guys, I'm Chief Meteorologist Mike Iskowitz. Time to check out your tropical update, and we want to begin with this almost tropical depression that moved inland at about noontime today. Now I say almost because I'm telling you, I am very confident that if this thing had about another 8 to 12 hours over the water of the Gulf, it would have developed into a tropical depression. But as it was, it moved inland here. This is the visible satellite imagery you'll see right there, which was about noontime. It moved in right around the Texas and Mexico border, and now it's made its way inland. And if you look really closely right there, you could probably get a sense here, I'll let it loop through a couple more times, of a bit of a circulation there. Now, it never quite had that closed low, that closed circulation to get upgraded to a tropical depression, but it was in the ballpark. It was really close. This is a look at the radar representation of when this thing moved inland, and you can see that it did have a little ragged circulation there to it when it moved in. There were flood watches that were in effect for deep South Texas. In fact, I think they are still in effect, but for right now, a lot of the rain has subsided. There were several flood advisories that were issued there for the valley as the system moved in, but that's about it. Now, what impacts is it having? Not much in the way of wind. There are a couple of things to watch out for really along the Gulf Coast, and this goes for the Texas Gulf Coast and even Louisiana, although there really aren't any beaches in Louisiana, maybe Mississippi, and that's the risk for rip currents. And so all along the Texas coastline through Saturday, maybe Sunday, that risk for rip currents is going to continue. That's the primary wind-related threat. Other than that, it's rain. It's the threat for rain all around the Gulf Coast. In fact, if you look at this loop over the last 8 hours, or last 5 hours, excuse me, it's amazing to see the extent of the influence that tropical systems like this can have, even ones that aren't even a depression. Look at this thunderstorm activity just blowing up across Louisiana, sort of loosely tied in with this tropical disturbance. So where is it headed? I mean, what's left of it continues to move inland, and so with the center, of this somewhat of a circulation moving to the south of San Antonio, it means that much of Texas, Louisiana, even back over to Mississippi, Alabama, will feel the plume. We'll have that plume of moisture coming in, which means a threat for some tropical downpours and maybe even some localized flooding, even inland for places like Austin, maybe even up to Dallas, because whenever you have a tropical system, even a relatively weak one like this one, it's mostly that moisture that comes in, combines with the daytime heating, and can bring you some significant downpours. So we'll look for that around the Texas and Louisiana region, not even the coast, but the entire region. All right, now I want to take you out here to the Atlantic, where we've had the season's first hurricane. Now, it's a little bit late. I mean, the first hurricane forming on August the 15th. Of course, it's not unheard of at all, but this is right in the middle of your screen here to the east and northeast of the Leeward Islands of the Caribbean, places like Antigua and Guadeloupe getting in on some inclement weather right now as a result of this system. Right now, the maximum sustained winds are just at hurricane force of about 75 miles per hour. Here's a close-up view of what we call the infrared satellite imagery. Now, it's not called infrared because it's red. That's like a color table that we put on top of this. Red means very tall cloud tops. It actually measures temperature. So the colder the temperature is, that darker red shows up. So it's a very tall cloud, and when you have the very tall clouds, you have the heaviest rain, and you have a lot of transfer of the heat from the surface of the ocean up into the cloud, which fuels these things. So what's steering it? Well, this area of high pressure, which we call the Bermuda High, is actually not quite over Bermuda. It's shifted a little bit out there to the central Atlantic Ocean, and so the winds flow around that in a clockwise direction, meaning that this thing is just going to move right along the outside of that area of high pressure. And this is really how a lot of tropical systems are steered, which is why a lot of systems just curve before they hit the U.S., and this one looks like it's going to do that. It will still have an influence, though, on East Coast weather, mostly in the form of some large waves and large swells headed toward all of the beaches, really from Florida all the way up to New England. So here's where Erin is located. The pressure is down to 993 millibars. That's actually not like an extremely strong hurricane, but the pressure will continue to drop, and as it does, the winds will increase. Now remember, I mentioned this to you early this week that I wouldn't be surprised if it got beyond Category 3 strength to a 4 or a 5, and right now the Hurricane Center is predicting it to become at least a Category 4. Let's check out a couple of models here. Here's our exclusive Fox weather model, again showing it moving to the north of the islands, probably some big waves and some rain bands for places like the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, but this is where it's going to have the highest likelihood for strengthening as it moves here to the north of the Dominican Republic. And notice there the Fox weather model shows it really having that circular eye that we very often associate with major hurricanes. Now here's the GFS computer model that's going to show you a very similar track as this thing kind of turns to the north and most likely becomes a very powerful storm. What's interesting about this one is as it runs into a cold front here coming off the east coast of the U.S. is going to accelerate away from the U.S. So this is Thursday, and look how quickly it moves into the far North Atlantic Ocean coming up late in the day on Friday. I also wanted to just finally show you what's next. So as we take a look at the continent of Africa here, it's that time of the year, it's their wet season here to the north of the equator, where you get these series of waves that move across. So each one of these turns into a tropical wave that moves out into the Atlantic, and there are going to be a couple more moving out there. Now keep in mind this is just one model, this is the GFS computer model, but it's showing that one of these waves right here might be one of the more robust ones, and it may be headed toward the Caribbean Sea. Now, given the time of the year, this is perfectly reasonable. So is this going to happen 100% the way it's being depicted right now? Not necessarily. This is a 7-day forecast taking us all the way out to next Friday, but it's definitely something to think about if you're watching us from the islands of the Caribbean Sea. Just be on alert. It's that time of the year, and so as we head toward maybe the 21st, 22nd, 23rd or so of August, it's certainly something to keep in mind. So Erin became the first hurricane of the season. To look at the list of names, we could have had Fernand in the Gulf. Didn't quite turn into that, but we'll see if maybe that system that I just showed you has a chance of maybe becoming Fernand. The next name after that, Gabrielle. So finally, where are we in the season right now? Well, we're definitely at the part of the season where the action starts to ramp up. We're right around here on mid-August, but I want you to notice here, this blue is an area that indicates the number of tropical storms. So between now and September 10th, the average number of storms actually doubles. So there's double the chance to have a named storm out there on September 10th as there is today, which means that things are about to start getting busy, most likely over the next month or so. So that's a look at the tropics for this day, for this afternoon, and we'll be back with more right after this.